Hi everyone, it's Ren here, and today I'm going to be talking about why small talk is essential. um, yeah, these discussions about small talk, they're interesting. Talking about small talk, I guess, is interesting because it's something that I see a lot in relation to conversations regarding, INFJs, regarding types, regarding personalities of people, regarding psychologies, and it seems to be something, small talk, that people are quick to dispel, quick to reject as something they do not engage in, and I find that quite amusing because I just don't think it's possible, apart from, cases where someone is, let's say, like on the anti-social spectrum. It's not possible to not engage in small talk, and I think that's really, to an extent, small talk is important. Small talk is something that should be done, should be engaged in. But I guess, as usual, the trick here is to know how to do it, or how to limit it, because imagine that you are really someone who doesn't do small talk. So what does it mean? Let's be philosophical about it. What does it mean to not do small talk? It means that you avoid all forms of talk that are not big talk, substantial talk, I guess. So, substantial talk, we could say. What is substantial talk? Does it count, say, like when you're joking with your friends or you're having a bit of fun with someone? Is that small talk, or is that substantial talk? What category does it fall into? Personally, I would consider it to be something that is very important, to be silly, to say things to my friends that are not particularly like profound in a sense, but in another sense are profound because they are a manifestation, an expression of the level of trust and level of closeness that exists between me and the person, such that we can appreciate each other's humor, connect through our humor, and just have a great time. So it's not deep in terms of the content, but it's deep in terms of what it manifests about the relationship, So that's one thing, like jokey moments for me, either they are acceptable small talk or they are not small talk, depending on the definition. But it seems to me that here we are suffering from the fact that small talk is not defined. So it's interesting in itself to try to wonder, like, what it is. What do people mean by small talk? Because if you think about another example, a more obvious example, all right? Let's forget about moments when we're not being serious, when we're being facetious with friends. Let's consider talking about the weather, for instance, right? So this is like the most typical example that I always come across. I always come across it when I'm online, or when people talk about how they don't like small talk. And I'll be honest with you, I don't consider myself to be a shallow person, but I talk about the weather a lot with people, with colleagues, but even sometimes with friends, it's a very habitual move to talk about the weather. Now, is that small talk? Yes, in a way. If that's not small talk, then small talk doesn't exist. But at the same time, is that illicit small talk? Is that something that we should try not to do? Is it something that hurts our depth, our sense of depth, if we aspire to be deep people? Does it hurt it if we engage in that? Personally, I do not think so at all. I think it's actually part of someone's depth to engage and talk about the weather. Let me explain. What I mean is, in many instances, people that we interact with, we do not know these people well. And since we do not know them well, we cannot engage in a deep, meaningful conversation straight away. There needs to be a door that's opened. And for the door to be opened, it often starts with paying attention to the basic things in life. I mean, if you think about it, the weather really is something that's very important in our lives. It has a direct impact on our lives. It's important for us. For example, today here, I'm in my apartment because I'm waiting for a plumber. Well, that's not particularly interesting, but the sky is so white. It's not even overcast. It's white. Can't see a thing. It's not great for my moods. I would be much happier if I had some sun, a blue sky and the sun. I mean, I'm from the south of France, so that probably impacts that. But that has a bearing on my life. Therefore, it probably has a bearing on everybody's life. It's fine to have that exchange, because it means, in a way, what it means is not that you want to talk about the weather. When you're mentioning it to someone, it means I'm willing to start a conversation which will eventually develop into something deeper. So small talk in that sense, by focusing on the everyday situations, elements, phenomena of life that we have to deal with and that are important to us in that sense. I mean, small talk about these things, insofar as it can be the open door to something much more profound, is essential. And someone who's against that, if that is possible, someone who doesn't really want to do that, is also someone who probably closes a lot of doors towards the evolution of a human interaction that might well have turned out to be super interesting. Super interesting. So I'll give you an example that happened very recently. So I was talking to a colleague of mine recently, and I do not know that person too well, and the conversation initially was on particular kinds of food in that person's country of origin. I do not want to disclose too much information about that person, because for reasons of anonymity. But it was quite because I do not know that country very well, and I was interested. I'm always interested in hearing what kind of food they make, and I try to get a picture of what the country's like. So to me, it wasn't small talk, but if you had just listened to the conversation, you might have thought so. Well, believe it or not, half an hour later, we were talking about geopolitics, the geopolitics of Africa, the geopolitics of the Middle East, the question of whether multipolar world is more stable than a bipolar world or a unipolar world. What is better? And that was not small talk, but it started with small talk, and I can tell you that there was no disconnect between the initial sort of exploration of territory that would qualify as small talk, and the sort of deeper exploration into the territory of our interaction, which was clearly topically profound, interesting, complex, and all that, and was very enriching, and in fact enlightened me. I learned things that I didn't know. But in order to learn these things that I didn't know, I had to somehow start with small talk. I couldn't have just gone to this person and been like, okay, tell me about the geopolitics of whatever. In fact, I didn't even know that person knew a lot about geopolitics. So it required a preliminary exchange that had the appearance of being superficial, but actually wasn't superficial. It was an opening towards something deep. And insofar as it was an opening towards something deep, it's part of the movement towards depth, and therefore is kind of deep in itself. And if you see small talk in that sense, then small talk is essential. As long as you do not see small talk as an end in itself, as something that is good just because it is small talk. Small talk is an opening towards depth rather than small talk for itself. Let me know what you think, guys. Okay, see you soon.